So she lived in a shotgun house with 8 of her 11 siblings. That meant in this little dull, gray, shedding paint-colored house, the first room belonged to Madir, her mother, and to Jake, her father. The next room belonged to all the children, followed by a kitchen with a small bathroom attached. Rooms were about 10 by 10, linoleum floors of wood where you might get splinters, self-applied wallpaper, cheap furniture, including a cheap couch that grew lumpy from Rosie choosing to sleep there when she tired of awakening to a foot in her mouth from one of the children, one of her 4 sisters who slept in the bed with her, 2 at the head of the bed and 2 at the foot of the bed. Or Rosie might awaken to a large, warm, wet spot when one of the children had an accident. Plus, Rosie liked to stay up late reading or watching TV when they finally got a television. When Rosie was in 7th grade, she used to do her own hair because her mother had stopped doing it years earlier when Rosie let one of her sisters cut her bangs over Madir's objections. So when Rosie did her hair, she would often burn plugs out of it as she used 2 hot straightening combs and curlers to smooth and fix her nappy hair. She was dark-skinned. And on the way to school when she was in 7th grade, it was usual for children to shout out, "Ooh-wee, you so black and ugly." Well, maybe she was black and ugly. She had short hair in a world that said good hair was long and straight like that on white folk. She was dark-skinned in a world that said, if you're light, you're all right. If you're black, get back. She was shy, wore ill-fitting clothes, shoes with run-over heels that often had cardboard in the bottom to cover the holes in the soles of the shoes. She wore old, ill-fitting clothes. I guess a pair of 2 big glasses would have completed the outfit, but she never had her eyes examined until she was 18 years old. She felt bad about herself because she believed the taunts. A dark cloud hung over her head. Rosie's family used to take baths in the same tin tub that they rinsed clothes and hung them out to dry on a clothesline stretched across a dirt backyard shared with the neighbors. Madir would be creative about making sure the children ate. She would make large pots of beans seasoned with meat, and she'd make cornbread. When Jake's garbage man's salary didn't go far enough, Madir would fry the meat and make gravy, and the children would eat gravy and cornbread, saving the meat for tomorrow's gravy. What happens to a severely poor kid like Rosie? What happens to people who live in deep poverty? In 1968, when Dr. Martin Luther King came to Memphis to fight for the garbage workers, the poverty wage was 2 adults, 2 children living on $6,000 a year. Rosie's father lived on $2,500 a year for 2 adults and 8 children. But we blame poor people for being poor. They said he should have gotten a better job. He should have gone to school more. He should have done better and worked harder. Madir would try to help, Sometimes she'd get a job cleaning the homes of white folk, making $25 a week. But we blame women. We blame them because they make up 75% of people living in poverty, women and children, 75%, and we blame them. We blame them for being poor. There is something called a just world philosophy that says people get what they deserve and poor people get what they deserve. And yet, there are 2 billion people in this world who live on less than $2 a day with their families. And by the time children grow to be preteens in that situation, they believe that they are getting what they deserve. And we blame them. All people blame people. Even I blame poor people. Once I was coming out of a Target store, and a woman walked up to me, and she said, "Can you spare some money? I want to feed my 2 children." And I thought, the nerve of her, trying to scam me with her 2 little children who looked to be about 4 and 5 years old. So I said, "I don't have any money, but you can have this box of crackers." Imagine my shame when, as I drove off, she tore open that box of crackers to feed her children. But what if we didn't blame? What if we gave a little more hope? What if we helped people to see that things could be different? You know, my family is pretty poor, but I have a lot of little nieces and nephews, and I teach a career counseling class at the University of Memphis, and there's a theorist, Linda Gottfredson, and she says that children make decisions about what they want to be based on gender. They've decided by the time they're 6, and so little boys want to grow up to be what? Policemen and firemen, and little girls want to grow up to be teachers and nurses. So I asked my little 6-year-old niece, "Well, what do you want to be when you grow up?" She said, "A ninja." How do you teach a severely poor kid, a little girl, to be a ninja? So her mother and I talked it over and decided that I would pay the fee and we'd all try to get her to Taekwondo so that she could learn to be a ninja. Within a year, she was champion in her age group. But there was no one in her neighborhood going to Taekwondo. None of her siblings were taking Taekwondo. We couldn't always get her there. The mother and dad were not together. The last competition she was in, she didn't even place because her dad didn't get her there. I said, "How do you feel?" She said, "Bad." But then last November, I took her out to lunch, and she said, "Aunt Rose, I made all A's and E's on my card." I said, "How'd you do that?" She said, "I set a goal." I say she had hope. Poverty is intergenerational, but even in this family, her great-grandmother, who lives on a $1,000 a month Social Security check, gives her hope. Her grandmother, who has a child of her own and works 3 jobs, gives her hope. So I said we need to give folk a little more hope. When Rosie was a little girl, her teachers gave her hope. They said she was smart. When she got in high school, they said, "You can go to college. You can get a scholarship." There are thousands of young people who benefited from the National Merit Foundation because we wanted to keep up with Russia and Sputnik. They gave those young people hope that things could be different. Rosie benefited from the National Merit. Using that scholarship gave her a hope so that she went to college. With a little more hope, she got a PhD. With a little more hope, she became president of the American Psychological Association. With a little more hope, she decided to bring the power and visibility of the American Psychological Association to the fight against deep poverty. I'm Rosie, and I'm glad you're here.